Hey there, this is John Chen tuning in from Ashland, Oregon, and I'm so excited. My fourth conference, the Engaging Virtual Meetings Conference, is coming up. In fact, here, let me share a little information about said upcoming conference because our special guest is related, of course, to special said conference. Right, this is the Engaging Virtual Meetings 4, and this year we are completely focused on the secrets for engaging virtual and hybrid conferences, summits, and masterclasses. Right? If you are one of those people who host any form of summit, a conference, or masterclass, you've got to go this year. And so let me just show you how to get a free ticket right now. Just go to EVM Conference, EVM Conference, Eventbrite.com. Again, EVM Conference, Eventbrite.com. We will have a free ticket, and there's also an amazing VIP ticket for $197, which will include over 80 hours of recorded playback material that you can have from all four conferences, as well as a host of other benefits and toolkits and other things that we want. We just really want to serve you. Let me just tell you, like $197 to make your conference better. Like, I don't know if you have ever shared a screen or been caught on mute in front of 200 people. I know that personally I have too. So you're not alone. I'll tell you, if we can just prevent one of those in your next conference, it will be completely worth it. Now, we have one of our speakers here with us today, and I'm just super excited to have him. I've gotten a chance to meet him over the last couple of years, and he's really making some strides in the speech because he's got the wealth of experience. He's the director of experience at the Social Media Examiner. He's has 25 years of creating customized events. By the way, he is a jazz saxophonist, and he's not afraid to show it. And most importantly, he's the author of Unforgettable, The Art and Science of Creating Memorable Experiences. Let's welcome to the stage the one and only Phil Mershon. Hey, Phil, what's going
Hey,
on?
John. Not too much. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, thank you for joining us today. It's always a pleasure to come and hang around with you. Phil, for my friends who don't know you, do me a favor and introduce yourself a little beyond the three things that I shared about you, who you are and what you do, Phil.
So, the easiest way to describe who I am is a Swiss Army knife. I have lots of things I enjoy. I'm an author, I'm a speaker, I'm a songwriter. I enjoy creating experiences, and I like pickleball, and the list could just keep on going. So, I have a lot of interests. I enjoy passionate things, and I also enjoy making experiences that stand out in people's minds.
Now, pickleball, I want to sidebar for a few minutes, right? Pickleball is finally hitting television. Have you seen these pickleball
I
tournaments
have.
hitting television?
I have. Yeah,
And
actually, at the local club where I play, one of the guys who's there just won one of the big tournaments this weekend. So we've got in Wichita, Kansas, where I live, we've got some of the top players in the world that all go and practice 2 miles from my house where I play. So it's kind of crazy.
and what's the attraction? What makes pickleball unforgettable for you?
I don't know if it's unforgettable in that sense, but it's fun. So I grew up
Yeah.
as a tennis player. I
Oh,
literally, this is funny, John. I grew up with a sport court in my backyard where you could play
oh,
badminton and volleyball and paddleball and pickleball. Well, pickleball I thought was for little kids, and growing up in Kansas with high winds, playing with a wiffle ball outside just seemed like a silly and stupid idea. So when I saw them building Chicken and Pickle, which is the local club, 5, 6 years ago, whatever it was, I thought they were never going to make it. I thought that's a bad business decision. But turns out it's a really fun game. And now that I'm in my 50s, it's way more accomplishable than tennis is.
right.
And it's interesting because anybody can play.
Well, speaking of accessible, right? Virtual and hybrid has become so much more accessible over the last 3 years. So I just love to hear what's your take on the last 3 years of what's happened with virtual and hybrid, Phil?
Yeah, it's funny because I've been doing virtual events not as long as you, but I've been doing them since 2010. And, so we were doing summits way back then. And so when everybody started going onto summits and becoming experts at, at digital events, I had to laugh. Because they didn't really know what they were doing, and we had people coming and wanting to advise us, and like we've been doing this a long time, but here's some of the things that have changed. Obviously, technology's changed. It made it a lot easier to do things like this. Breakout rooms all of a sudden became possible. Video
Mm,
conferencing became much more stable than it ever was before. We've learned how to engage online. Before the pandemic, I would say everyone was fighting the passive learning thing, and it was just part of the deal. You knew it was there. People had to fight for attention if they were going to have successful businesses post pandemic, right? And so I think some things have been learned where we can create experiences that do stand out. I don't think any of them have become as good as being in person, but I think there's been some that have simulated that in ways, and we've had reasonable levels of success. That hasn't always been our goal, but businesses that are driven by, if you don't keep them engaged till the end for them to buy, or that transformation is actually part of your business model, you
Yeah.
have to figure it out.
Mm. Yeah, well, I have been quoted as saying, sometimes virtual can be as good as in person, and there are a few times when it can actually be better, and I think that's the things that we should really look at for that. So Phil, let's talk about your session, right? You're going to talk about you basically after 25 years, you've developed a method or a system for creating unforgettable experiences, and I'd love to hear, what's a little bit that people can expect when they come to see you speak at my conference.
Yeah, well, we're going to walk through the customer journey within your event and identify some of the most important moments to design to make sure that those are memorable. We're also going to look at some of the threats. So I've identified 5 threats. You may come up with one that I haven't come up with, but we're going to look at the threats and how you reverse those and actually make those strengths or at least neutralize them. Those are a couple of the things that we're going to do. I want you to walk away from my workshop having identified a few experiences within your event that you can design that you know will stand out. And then how do you train your staff is probably the third part if we have time to get to, on how do you train your staff to create those one of a kind experiences.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar with Andy Stanley's quote, but I love quoting this to my staff saying, do for one what you wished you could do for everyone. And I want to train staff to have that mindset to be on the lookout for those kind of moments. So some of the things we're doing are for everybody. Most of them are not. Most of them are for groups of people or even small groups of people. And it might be a customer experience situation. It might be you're just surprising and delighting. And I always tell the staff, go and make somebody's day every day. So have it
Yeah.
as a mission. And if you've got 100 people that everyone has that as their mission, then you've made 100 people's days, and there's going to be a ripple effect of that. So we're going to talk about the power of stacking moments. So if we look at these different moments and
Mm.
we can make them all positive, then it's going to add up to something that's going to approach being unforgettable. Unforgettable may sound lofty, and that probably is, but I think there are things that we do, and we're going to walk through the building blocks of the things that we do. If we do them consistently, our events are going to stand out from every other event that people are going to, and you'll end up creating moments that do stand the test of time.
Well, I love that. I want to give a shout out to Paul Kreider, who's watching us live. That's some of the key small things that can make it engaging. It's like you're listening to this, and all of a sudden you're going, "Oh my God, John actually is paying attention to the Facebook chat." The small
Right.
things like that. I love your concept of stacking moments, and I especially love the training of your staff. And here's the reason why: is that one of our early successes in 2020, in pandemic successes, was a 1,200 person conference that felt engaging for everyone. And it's because we had trained 200 people who had different roles, right? They are speakers, producers, and mainly ambassadors were the top set of people. Those are the staff where they were supposed to come in and try and find a way to have people feel welcome in a format that was kind of new to them. Phil, I'd love to hear any other stories that you have around that where this training the staff has really turned into an unforgettable moment for someone.
Well, I have staff who come back year after year because they love going and making people's day, and they love telling those stories, and it gives them a high at the end of the event to realize they were empowered to go do this. And it usually doesn't cost money. Usually it's, I'll tell you one story, and it required some pre-planning, but it was a fun story. So we moved from being a one hotel, single hotel event to a multi-hotel or a citywide event back in 2016. And we were anticipating, well, what's going to cause people to check out, maybe leave the event and never come back? And we identified it might be they need to get work done, they might need to take a nap, or they might need to brush their teeth. And we said, well, let's solve those things. And so he said, well, we can create a space for them to work. We can create a quiet space for them to kick up their feet and take a nap. And then we found a solution for the brushing your teeth. And it happened because someone came to our information desk, and her name was Malene. She's from Denmark. And she came and said, I need a drugstore. I forgot my toothbrush at the hotel, and I don't want to go back 25 minutes. She wanted to come back. It wasn't exactly the problem that we thought we were solving. She did want to come back, but they said, well, we've got something better for you. And they led her down the hallway, walked her into the ladies' bathroom, and there was a basket with toothbrushes and toothpaste. And
Wow.
so, and the person who got to walk her down the hallway had the best day of her life, because now all of a sudden Malene's a lifetime customer, and she's become one of our best word of mouth marketers. Like, she's brought many friends to the conference, and it all started with a toothbrush and a small little experience, and we anticipated it. So as an event organizer, we're anticipating what
Mm,
are moments,
mm.
but some of it's just saying, hey, someone gets their luggage that doesn't make it, go get them a t-shirt. Let's give them some money so they can go to a store and buy some stuff. Let's figure out what can we do to make their day.
Quiet rooms too have really become a feature that was, hitting a lot of in person. So like wellness rooms, and a lot of times there are these quiet rooms where uh, people are becoming more and more sensitive that a conference shouldn't just be splash and entertainment and speakers and noise and people. That some
Yeah.
people, right, need that quiet space, and sometimes it's not the people you think. Sometimes it's the extroverts who also need this, space to, like, they end up having that experience if you provide that type of space. So, in our virtual conference this year, right, we're going to put a big 1 hour break in the middle of it, so that's kind of like our version of this space, so that you can consume this and you really want to be on. We want a very distinct time to be off. I think breaks is something that is even more important in a virtual and a hybrid conference than they are in an in-person conference, because we're having to deal with so much technology. So I love these
Yeah.
tips. And I also love the fact that I don't know if I've really approached this, which is like, what are the failings or what are the problems that you could have, and look at that as a way to think about what should I design into this experience, right, Phil?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're right with the breaks are super important with online, because you need to give people the mental safety to know there's a time to be present here, and there's going to be a time to go check their messages and get work done, so that they're not constantly going back and forth. I think that's really important to do in a virtual event, even more so than maybe a physical event. And so setting that tone of, hey, you know what? In 45 minutes, you're going to be able to get some work done. We're going to take a break. But right now, I invite you to be present, because you might miss something. You might miss the very reason that you came here. So that's where, like, the MC becomes even more important, I think, in a
Oh,
virtual event, because we've got to constantly call people back, like you did with Paul just a minute ago. You acknowledged him. I hopefully just called him back, away from whatever he was looking at, right? And that's what we have to do, right?
that's what I've told people too. Is like, when people tune out, like that's a number one or number two complaint that I've heard, Phil, is that people are multitasking while in a virtual meeting. And I said, well, the first one is redesign your content. If people are multitasking, unfortunately, your stuff is not as important as whatever that other stuff was. So think about that. I've
Right.
told a sales team, I said, what's your recommendation? I said, end the meeting. End the meeting now. Just stop, right? Just stop the meeting, because redesign the whole thing and only come back when you have content that is more valuable for them to listen to, rather than make a call to a client, because you want them to do that too, right? And
Yes.
so, yeah, so I think some of
Both are
those,
important. Yeah.
yeah, but doing both at the same time is the sure path to do neither one of them well.
Yeah. I like to tell what Pete Vargas did at Advance Your Reach. And this was in person, but I've seen something similar happen online. I'll tell both stories if we have time.
Yeah.
But he starts the event by saying, hey, everybody, grab your phone. This is the only time I'm going to ask you to do this, but I want you to grab your phone, and I want you to text someone or send them an email who made it possible for you to be here. And I want you to send them a really short note thanking them and then make a promise to them. Say, because you have made it possible for me to be here, I promise that I'm going to get everything out of this event that I can. I can't wait to tell you about it. See you in 3 days. Now, notice what he did there. Notice he gave you permission to use your phone. He put a moment of gratitude in your heart, but he also challenged you. There you go. He also challenged you to come back to this space and lean in. And he actually did something else right after that. He said, now I know some of you have been here before, or you're thinking that you're going to multitask while you're here. I want to challenge you with something. So he all of a sudden got me, because I was planning to multitask my way through that conference. And he said, I want to challenge you to lean in and get why you're here. Like, you can get that other stuff done tonight or on the lunch break or some other time, but I want to challenge you to be here because there's something that you came here for. You got on a plane, you got a hotel room, you're here for a reason. Lean in and get it. So that grabbed me, and I said, okay, I'm going to give you this morning, and then I'll see. That's what I did. That's what I mentally said. And two things happened that morning. Two conversations happened, both of which were instrumental in me writing the book that I've written.
Ooh.
And one of them became life-changing in terms of just the trajectory of where I saw myself going. And that wouldn't have happened if I'd have been multitasking in the back and opting out of the conversations that he was inviting us into. And I think the same thing can happen at a virtual event. So do you know who John Berghoff is?
I think I've heard the name. Go ahead.
He's with the exchange approach, and he is all about creating conversations at scale. And he's a big believer that when we gather together, that we should spend more time talking than we should listening to someone talk. But it's all about asking the right questions. Well, one of the things he did soon after the pandemic, and he still does it now, and I think this is the best I've ever seen in a virtual event of getting people bought in and connecting, is he invited people to go into a room and grab an item. I'm going to do it.
Okay.
And he would get them to grab an item. He said, I want you to come back, and I want you to tell a story about why that item is meaningful to you. And that started the conversation. Now we've got something physical. We're bringing our physical life into a virtual conversation. And he had us do this a couple times. Once he actually said, go outside and grab something and bring it back. So now you're bringing earth into it, which is really interesting. But what ended up happening as a result of creating that connection is the next round of breakout, we were all ready to go deep. I was crying, John. I was crying as I told a story. And one of the other dads in this story, I'll cry today because I remember it that clearly, and it's 3 years ago. But one of the other dads could relate because we both had a kid who'd attempted suicide. But we'd known each other an hour, John. An hour. We talked about saxophones and, little widgets from around our rooms. And then all of a sudden, an hour later, we're going into these deep places because he created psychological safety.
Right.
And he created this intention of we're going to show up. And he told us why. Like, he gave us some whys, but he didn't talk for so long. But he invited us into a space of saying, this is only going to be as transformational as you make it, right? So if you lean in, if you're going to be present, if you're willing to show up, then others are going to show up for you. And all of a sudden, we're going to have a community where amazing things can happen. And it did. It was the best event I went to in the entirety of the pandemic, including ones that I put on.
Wow. That's something to pay attention. I mean, Phil, this comes from, Patrick Lencioni proved this too in 5 Dysfunctions of a Team and many other things, because I retested it over the last 3 years. His one is tell a challenging childhood story. And it sounds really simple, but if you get everyone to do it, like I literally got a Taiwanese company had bought a US company, and they had started fighting over the pandemic because they couldn't visit each other in person. And somebody asked me to do a fun team building event for them. And let me tell you, after I interviewed both sides individually, I came back to them. I said, I think the worst idea for you is to run a fun team building event with them. And they all agreed, thank God. And so I said, now, if you do want to keep and hire me, I would love to run a 3-hour event where I think I can try and repair this relationship. And it started with this Patrick Lencioni part, which is every single person told a challenging childhood story, and there is some piece around that psychological safety. You know, somebody said he was kicked off of, he was not selected for his varsity baseball team, and he was pissed, right? And then he got over being pissed, and he goes, I just want to be part of the team. So he decided to be the ball boy and the water boy. And and then of course, three months into the season, star player gets injured. Guess who they call up?
Yeah, absolutely.
This guy. And that story, he's the VP of a top company here in the United States. And he goes, that, you know, that story just, I think he just like showed him, you know, how that stick-to-itiveness and the tenacity really pays off. And that was his early lesson of that paying off. Yeah, and the other thing is we just did Tony Robbins' Global Youth Leadership Summit. It was actually all in person of all things. And presence was the number one value that all of the leaders who were assisting the event, there were about 60 to 70 of us for 300 kids from 38 countries. And that presence led to some of the biggest breakthroughs for these kids. I love that. And I think I'm going to have to add an invitation in our beginning part about we invite you to be here because it's so easy to not be here right now. And all the value is if you're here.
Well, that's the reason why every one of us as trainers in that event or whatever event, not only at the beginning, but occasionally need to call Paul back. The metaphorical Pauls who are in the room. So being aware of who's there and having ways that you're drawing them back in. And that could be doing something that is unexpected. You know, you're stepping off screen, or you're pulling out your sax, you're playing, or whatever your version of that is, or you're inviting them into a level of participation. It doesn't have to be, it could be as simple as, you know, say something in the chat. It could be something more involved in that. But I think we have to be thinking strategically about how do we do that, because we know people are constantly being pulled. You know, 7 to 8 minutes is about as long as we can stay focused in our attention spans, they say, right? And maybe at 7 or 8 seconds, we're being tempted to look away. So we've got to have regular things that we're doing.
Well, I want to add two things to this. Number one is one of our good friends, Jimbo Clark, has coined the term phygital. When you take a physical object combined with a digital experience, that you can create something phygital, which is like why, you know, holding up and talking about physical objects really has to it. And Phil, let me just check your improv here too. Have some of the most unforgettable moments from a conference, summit, or masterclass come from totally unexpected things, Phil?
I would say yes. That's an interesting question, but the unexpected,
You know what I'm talking? Sometimes a mistake becomes like the thing that people remember from a conference.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now I've seen it happen. I'm trying to conjure one right now.
Well, here, while you think of one here, I'm going to help you create one. Okay, are you ready?
All right, let's create one.
So I'm here, and my guest was able to use a scooter. But this is me live riding a scooter to my interview. Yeah, see, that's a real life scooter.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Well, and you know, and I do this on purpose. It's not usually something that is completely spontaneous, but it is spontaneous because I have no idea what's about to happen. But we'll create another one right now. And okay. John, I want you to tell me 3 words that stand out in your brain from our last 20 minutes of conversation. What are 3 words that stand out?
Presence, phygital, and safety.
And those go so well together, not. Presence, phygital, and safety. All right. So I'm gonna play a jazz response to those 3 words, which will be an experience right here in the moment that's never going to be repeated again.
Ladies and gentlemen, Phil Mershon. I think the trills were fidgetal.
Those were the fidgetal moments. Yeah, it was a little obvious, but
Oh my
not
God.
enough time to make something a full developed orchestration. But so I think, yeah, we can definitely create moments, be ready to create moments. But sometimes you're right; it happens without our knowledge taking place. Or you start something that becomes way bigger than you expected. NAMM did something really curious where they decided to hire a group to create a drum circle. I don't think they expected it to become as big as it was. There were hundreds of people that gathered in this circle, and all the, of course, at NAMM you've got professional musicians all over the place, but
Yeah.
they were all letting their hair down and just having a blast, and the guy that was leading it, and it just became this moment. And it actually became an hour moment. Like they couldn't stop it. People wanted to keep on going and keep on going. So, sometimes you plan something and it becomes a lot bigger than what you expected it to be.
It starts when it starts and it ends when it ends, Phil. If someone, Phil, was thinking about not coming to your session at the Engaging Virtual Meetings Conference, what would you tell them?
Other than buy my book? No.
And buy
I'd
a
say
student, right?
if you're not going to come to my session or to the virtual conference, I think you have the power to start redesigning experiences within whatever event you're creating right now. Just take a couple that stand out to you. I think the most important ones to look at, if you want to keep it simple, is the first impression, the last impression, and look at a couple of peak moments within it, and then say, what could go wrong? How do we fix that? And then how can we make it much better so that it stands out, and design it for, and I guess the other part of it is know who your audience is. So if you're designing an event for John versus me versus your grandmother versus your daughter, those are 4 different audiences, and they may or may not be the same experience that you should design.
Excellent. Thank you, Phil. For those who are, again, watching, right? Click the link for crying out loud, EVM conference, eventbrite.com. We provide a free ticket. By the way, Phil, the last conference I attended, the National Association of Catering and Events, their live ticket was $1,520, Phil. This link, by the way, EVM conference, eventbrite.com, is free. We just want to help you, right? Just what you were talking about earlier, Phil. I want less people suffering on virtual and hybrid. That's really one of my goals. Phil, thank you so much for speaking at my conference and for taking a little time out today. Any final words before we sign off for today?
Well, if you've ever been to an event where they've herded you from room to room and you felt like you were a cow, that is like the worst feeling on earth. And John and I are on a mission to stamp out the cow herding moments, the no more boring events. Let's do it together. Let's create memorable experiences so people don't even think about being bored.
That's right, Phil. Elephants, not cows. Elephants, not cows. Phil, thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing you on October 23rd through the October 25th, all online. And we'll see you all next time. Let's see if we can actually hit the button on the right part. All right. Thank you so much, Phil. We'll see you next time.
Always start people and keep old people. Show you